Even in the heat of battle, Robert E. Lee never forgot who was waiting for him at home. Today, we read generals' letters to different members of the Lee family. Robert E. Lee wrote this letter to his wife, Mary Anna Randolph Custis Lee, after the Battle of Gettysburg.
The consequences of war are horrid enough at best, surrounded by all the ameliorations of civilization and Christianity. I am very sorry for the injuries done the family at Hickory Hill, and particularly that our dear old Uncle Williams, in his 80th year, should be subjected to such treatment. But we cannot help it, and must endure it. You will, however, learn, before this reaches you, that our success at Gettysburg was not so great as reported. In fact, that we failed to drive the enemy from his position, and that our army withdrew to the Potomac. Had the river not unexpectedly risen, all would have been well with us. But God in His all-wise providence willed otherwise, and our communications have been interrupted and almost cut off. The waters have subsided to about 4 feet, and, if they continue, by tomorrow, I hope, our communications will be open. I trust that a merciful God, our only hope and refuge, will not desert us in this hour of need, and will deliver us by His almighty hand, that the whole world may recognize His power, and all hearts be lifted up in adoration and praise of His unbounded loving kindness. We must, however, submit to His almighty will, whatever that may be. May God guide and protect us all is my constant prayer.
General's letter to his daughter, Anne Carter Lee.
My precious Annie, it has been a long time since I have written to you, but you have been constantly in my thoughts. I think of you all, separately and collectively, in the busy hours of the day and the silent hours of the night, and the recollection of each and every one whiles away the long night in which my anxious thoughts drive away sleep. But I always feel that you and Agnes at those times are sound asleep, and that it is immaterial to either where the blockaders are or what their progress is in the river. I hope you are all well and as happy as you can be in these perilous times to our country. They look dark at present, and it is plain we have not suffered enough, labored enough, repented enough to deserve success. But they will brighten after a while, and I trust that a merciful God will arouse us to a sense of our danger, bless our honest efforts, and drive back our enemies to their homes. Our people have not been earnest enough, have thought too much of themselves and their ease, and instead of turning out to a man, have been content to nurse themselves and their dimes, and leave the protection of themselves and families to others. To satisfy their consciences, they have been clamorous in criticizing what others have done, and endeavored to prove that they ought to do nothing. This is not the way to accomplish our independence. I have been doing all I can with our small means and slow workmen to defend the cities and coast here. Against ordinary numbers we are pretty strong, but against the hosts our enemies seem able to bring everywhere. There is no calculating, but if our men will stand to their work, we shall give them trouble and damage them yet. They have worked their way across the marshes, with their dredges under cover of their gunboats, to the Savannah River, about Fort Pulaski. I presume they will endeavor to reduce the fort, and thus open a way for their vessels up the river. But we have an interior line they must force before reaching the city. It is on this line we are working, slowly to my anxious mind, but as fast as I can drive them. Goodbye, my dear child. May God bless you and our poor country.
Robert Lee's letter to his sister, Anne Kinloch Lee Marshall.
My dear sister, I am grieved at my inability to see you. I have been waiting for a more convenient season, which has brought to many before me deep and lasting regret. Now we are in a state of war which will yield to nothing. The whole South is in a state of revolution into which Virginia, after a long struggle, has been drawn. And, though I recognize no necessity for this state of things, and would have forborne and pleaded to the end for a redress of grievances, real or supposed, yet in my own person I had to meet the question whether I should take part against my native state. With all my devotion to the Union and the feeling of loyalty and duty of an American citizen, I have not been able to make up my mind to raise my hand against my relatives, my children, my home. I have therefore resigned my commission in the army, and save in defense of my native state, with the sincere hope that my poor services may never be needed. I hope I may never be called on to draw my sword. I know that you will blame me, but you must think as kindly of me as you can, and believe that I have endeavored to do what I thought right, to show you the feeling and struggle it has cost me. I send you a copy of my letter of resignation. I have no time for more. May God guard and protect you and yours, and shower upon you everlasting blessings. is the prayer of your devoted brother.
Robert E. Lee's letter to his son, Robert E. Lee, Jr.
You must study to be frank with the world. Frankness is the child of honesty and courage. Say just what you mean to do on every occasion and take it for granted that you mean to do right. If a friend asks a favor, you should grant it, if it is reasonable. If not, tell him plainly why you cannot. You would wrong him and wrong yourself by equivocation of any kind. Never do a wrong thing to make a friend or keep one. The man who requires you to do so is dearly purchased at the sacrifice. Deal kindly but firmly with all your classmates. You will find it the policy which wears best. Above all, do not appear to others what you are not. If you have any foul to find with anyone, tell him, not others, of what you complain. There is no more dangerous experiment than that of undertaking to be one thing before a man's face and another behind his back. We should live, act, and say nothing to the injury of anyone. It is not only for the best as a matter of principle, but it is the path of peace and honor. In regard to duty, let me, in conclusion of this hasty letter, inform you that nearly 100 years ago there was a day of remarkable gloom and darkness, still known as the Dark Day. A day when the light of the sun was slowly extinguished, as if by an eclipse. The legislature of Connecticut was in session, and as its members saw the unexpected and unaccountable darkness coming on, they shared in general awe and terror. It was supposed by many that the last day, the day of judgment, had come. Someone, in the consternation of the hour, moved an adjournment. Then there arose an old Puritan legislator, Davenport, of Stamford, and said that, if the last day had come, he desired to be found at his place doing his duty, and therefore moved that candles be brought in, so that the House could proceed with its duty. There was quietness in that man's mind, the quietness of heavenly wisdom and inflexible willingness to obey present duty. Duty, then, is the sublimest word in our language. Do your duty in all things like the old Puritan. You cannot do more. You should never wish to do less. Never let your mother or me wear one gray hair for any lack of duty on your part.
Lee's letter to his older brother, Sidney Smith Lee.
My dear brother Smith, the question which was the subject of my earnest consultation with you on the 18th has in my own mind been decided. After the most anxious inquiry as to the correct course for me to pursue, I concluded to resign, and sent in my resignation this morning. I wished to wait until the ordinance of secession should be acted on by the people of Virginia, but war seems to have commenced, and I am liable at any time to be ordered on duty, which I could not conscientiously perform. To save me from such a position, and to prevent the necessity of resigning under orders, I had to act at once, and before I could see you again on the subject, as I had wished. I am now a private citizen, and have no other ambition than to remain at home. Save in defense of my native state, I have no desire ever again to draw my sword. I send you my warmest love.
In this letter, Robert E. Lee writes to his wife, Mary Anna Randolph Custis Lee, about finding a safe and comforting place to meet in the midst of war.
I cannot let this day of grateful rejoicing pass, dear Mary, without some communion with you. I am thankful for the many among the past that I have passed with you, and the remembrance of them fills me with pleasure. For those on which we have been separated, we must not repine. If it will make us more resigned and better prepared for what is in store for us, we should rejoice. Now we must be content with the many blessings we receive, if we can only become sensible of our transgressions, so as to be fully penitent and forgiven, that this heavy punishment under which we labor may with justice be removed from us and the whole nation. What a gracious consummation of all that we have endured it will be. I hope you had a pleasant visit to Richmond. So you do not like my invitation to Fayetteville. I thought I gave you the choice of Richmond too, as well as Charleston and Savannah, but for the threatening movements of the enemy. Well, it shows the perverseness of human nature to reject those agreeable cities that were accessible and select a decrepit and deserted village because inaccessible. If you were to see the place, I think you would leave it too. I am here but little myself. The days I am not away, I visit some point exposed to the enemy, and after our dinner at early candlelight, am engaged in writing till 11 or 12 at night. But this place is too exposed to attack for the residence of a person as hard to move as you are. You would be captured while you were waiting a moment, As to our old home, if not destroyed, it will be difficult ever to be recognized. Even if the enemy had wished to preserve it, it would almost have been impossible, with the number of troops encamped around it, the change of officers, and the want of fuel, shelter, and all the dire necessities of war. It is vain to think of its being in a habitable condition. I fear 2 books, furniture, and the relics of Mount Vernon will be gone. It is better to make up our minds to a general loss. They cannot take away the remembrances of the spot and the memories of those that to us rendered it sacred. That will remain to us as long as life will last and that we can preserve. In the absence of a home, I wish I could purchase Stratford. That is the only other place that I could go to now accessible to us. That would inspire me with feelings of pleasure and local love. You and the girls could remain there in quiet. It is a poor place, but we could make enough cornbread and bacon for our support, and the girls could weave us clothes. I wonder if it is for sale and at how much. Ask Fitzhugh to try and find out when he gets to Fredericksburg. You must not build your hopes on peace on account of the U.S. going into a war with England. She will be very loath to do that, notwithstanding the bluster of the northern papers. Her rulers are not entirely mad, and if they find England is in the earnest, and that war or a restitution of their captives must be the consequence, they will adopt the latter. We must make up our minds to fight our battles and win our independence alone. No one will help us. We require no extraneous aid, if true to ourselves, but we must be patient. It is not a light achievement and cannot be accomplished at once. I am very glad to hear of poor Anne. Her miseries are increased by the war, too. I am also glad to hear of the kind sympathies and aid of Eleanor Rogers and Edmund. I had not heard of poor little Mary's sickness, and do not know to what you allude when speaking of Parker's affliction. We must expect Mrs. Bonaparte and our other pretty friends to be opposed to us. They wish to save their claims. It is necessary to them to preserve their good dinners. It will not last. I have received your letter enclosing Charlotte's. I cannot write to her tonight. I wrote a few days since giving you all the news. One have now therefore nothing to relate. The enemy is still quiet and increasing in strength. We grow in size slowly, but are working hard. I have had a day of labor instead of rest and have written at intervals to some of the children. I hope they are with you and enclose my letters. Give much love to the children.
Robert E. Lee, Jr. wrote to his father on April 23, 1862, describing his experiences as part of the Shenandoah Valley Campaign, reporting on the Army of the Valley's actions and morale.
Dear Father, your letter of the 18th inst. Reached me today, it being the second time I have heard from any one of you since I entered the Army. Captain Coleman brought me a joint letter from Annie and Agnes not very long ago. The Yankees are still running us, and I expect we will move tomorrow, as they are reported quite close tonight. We have turned off on a country road half pike and half dirt, which leads to Gordonsville. The day we got here it rained, and for 3 days it poured, and we have no tents, and you can just imagine the comfort of the Army of the Valley. I fortunately procured a place on a porch of a house just across the road from our encampment, where I kept comparatively dry. All the recruits of our company are still guarding the prisoner we had in Harrisonburg, but not quite so many, for a great many have been released. There are 9 Yankees among the number now, most of them cavalry from Vermont. Since that act in Congress that every artillery company should consist of 150 men, I have been thrown out of the regular army and am now no better than militia. We are on this detached duty, and when that is finished, at the discretion of General Jackson, we are to be put into the other artillery companies of the Army. By this I am separated from all my friends, messmates, and everything else. But they are turning everything upside down. Here, turning artillery into infantry, and vice versa. The whole army seems very much dissatisfied, and there are a good many desertions among the militia and the valley men who refuse to leave their homes behind them. But you can't expect anything else from volunteers. They want to have everything their own way. I am going to try everything I can to get in the regular army, and if I can't, I will do what I am told my time is out. I must bid you good night. Love to all. The $10 was received with the thanks of your son.